All right, welcome everyone. We are here in Nassau, Bahamas. I am joined by some know him as the King. We got Brian Rast in the house. Brian, what's going on, man?
Not much. I am here in the Bahamas for poker for the first time. I got roped in because of this pretty sick 25K that's about to take off, where they added in 300 people and $1 million. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'll come down here. You got me. I get to spend time with Jeff, and should be cool.
All right, well, guys, again, if most of you know from poker, Brian, want to kind of give a little background on him. We'll just quickly show you, his resume here. Obviously, Hen and Mob, one of the bigger lifetime winners in poker. Pretty impressive. That's in tournaments. He's also a cash game specialist, so we're going to talk about the difference in that. But just to give you guys a little bit of a background on him, you can check him out on Brian Rast on Twitter, Brian Rast on Instagram. He's got all the stuff. He even has a website, pretty clean, chic website here. So we'll kind of scroll through this stuff and show you guys that as we go. We also do have a retweet giveaway on our. If you want to ask Brian a question, we'll try to get to those. If you go on my Twitter, there's a question spot where we have a retweet giveaway, and we'll let Brian click that button to see who wins at the end. But you guys want to ask a question? I see there's already 15 in there, so that's pretty cool. And without further ado, we'll keep it going and start chatting about Brian. I want to know. I know personally. We've known each other a long time. One of my closest friends, and vice versa. I hope, as at least you've indicated. I want people to kind of know about you though. Tell us about like a little background. Where you're from, who you are, how you got into poker, that whole goodness.
Born in Denver. When I was 9, moved to Poway. It's a suburb of San Diego. Lived there till college. Went to Stanford. When I was at Stanford, found poker. Was a really good student in high school, not such a good student in university. Yeah. Once I found poker, that was kind of the end of me in college. I stuck around. I was a math major. Think, in retrospect, had maybe after poker, shifted to something like philosophy that was more interesting. Like I kind of chose math. I'm like, I'm good at this. I can use it to get a job. It's flexibly get a job in a lot of different areas. But once it's like, oh, hey, I'm playing poker, I'm like, I'm going to do this for a little while, forever, whatever. I wasn't that motivated to do math. And math wasn't a major where you can basically be a really bad student and pass. There's problem sets due every week, midterm, whatever. So I failed out of, my last standing at college was on academic probation for the second time. And then, so that was me not going back. Didn't graduate, but I've been playing poker ever since. I mean, I played for about 2 years when I was in college, and then dropped out, and that was over 15 years ago. So I've been mostly doing poker ever since then. I mean, that's been my main, job, so to speak, if you want to call it that.
And family, parents are. Oh, someone wants to join the podcast. Oh, you know who that is, guys? It's on live. I think it could be Shinman. Probably can't get upstairs.
Shinman.
Hold 1 sec. Let me just. Hold it.
Jeff is going. Okay, so then so then that's what I did, and I've been playing poker ever since. I started out as a cash game player. I was only a cash game player for many years, and I didn't really start playing tournaments at all, and I mean seriously until like 5 or 6 years ago. I went through a period where I was playing a lot of cash and tournaments. Up until maybe about a year and a half ago, and I've kind of gone back to being mostly a cash game player. I don't play nearly as many tournaments anymore. Although, I play some, and I play more than I did at the beginning of my career. But yeah, I mean, my biggest, action now is mixed cash, which is the game in Bobby's room.
Okay, so we're having a little bit of an interruption there. Sorry about that. But yeah, okay, so you got that. You've said what you've been doing. And what about, did the family give you ever a problem about playing? Was that like a man drop? I mean, that's a pretty big deal. You go to Stanford, you're getting out of, now you're saying, all right, I'm becoming a poker player. I mean, it's not parents.
They wanted me to graduate, of course. I mean, it's totally understandable. I would want the same thing for my kids.
Yeah.
You start something, you finish it. But not like a big problem. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, my dad started learning poker, and he kind of understood. He wanted me to finish school just so that I would have it, practically to fall back on. My mom a little bit less accepting of poker initially, I would say, but she kind of came around to it once she saw that I was making money and supporting myself, and it was okay. And my mom was more like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I trust you and I love you, and so it was, they weren't happy, but it was fine.
Right.
That my parents loved me and supported me, and it wasn't like disowning you or anything near
dramatic.
That drastic. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. So that's cool. I know that's sometimes a struggle. Sometimes there's tough spots with professionals and their families, and just not really, they just don't support. So that's nice when they do. All right. So you go from there.
Yeah. Actually, after university, I went back and I lived with my parents for about a year and a half or 2 years before I went to Las Vegas, where I was playing mostly online, but I would make trips sometimes to Commerce or to the Bellagio for like a week, and then or Commerce sometimes only the weekend because it wasn't that far, and then come back and then like play online at my parents' house and whatever until I moved out.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's support. That's support,
Yeah. They didn't say. They said. They didn't say you can't come home.
They didn't say fuck you.
Okay. I like it. Yeah. I mean, I know Papa Rast from Burning Man. That's a whole nother. We can talk about Burning Man as well. That was Ryan and I have had some good times at Burning Man. Let's talk about playing. Like, in your heyday, what was the most you ever played? Like, let's say hours a week or time. Like, or how would you say you're playing nowadays compared to? How would you say you're playing? How much now versus in the old days? Like, as from your heyday, like, are you playing as much, less, more? Family now, you got married, stepson.
I mean, the most I ever played was around the time I dropped out of school, and I was playing over 80 hours a week, for sure. 80 to 100 hours a week probably. I probably did that for a couple years. All I really did was play poker. I mean, I played. I might read a few books here and there, and I'd hang out with people occasionally, but that was it. I was playing. That was all I was into. After I met, it's over the years, it's like kind of gradually slowed down a bit. And now, I go through periods where I'll play a lot, but for the most part, I'm not playing that much. So during the World Series, I still play a lot. I play poker every day.
Yeah.
I'm playing cash, I'm playing tournaments, but that's usually only about 2 months. And then outside of the WSOP, it's a lot more relaxed. But I mean, I think one of my strengths as a poker player is over the years, just like I kind of have like kind of vampire endurance. I've just played a lot of like 20 to 50-hour sessions.
What's the longest? Do you know your longest actual?
Yeah, my longest is probably around 50. I mean, I don't know what the exact number is, but like 50, 52, something like that.
Damn, that's a sick. I know the world record was our buddy Phil Locke had like 117 hours, but over 2 days is like, that's pretty insane.
Yeah.
I've never done that. I've done 30, 32 maybe, but that's the most.
No, I mean, when I started out, like I would play long sessions just to play. I mean, I'd be playing, whatever. I in the beginning, I'd go to the casino. I'd be playing like 6-12 limit hold'em or whatever. I'd play like 36 hours in a game that's there every day. As time went on in my career, obviously, I kind of like backed off doing that. But you know what? I just would bust out listen, if you're in a game, like I used to go to Macau. The games in Macau, let's say 8-9 years ago, used to be amazing. Mm-hmm. There'd be a VIP in the game, and, a lot of times they are a little sicker than, let's say, VIPs from other parts of the world. They just wanted to play. In fact, the approach to gambling in Asia is different, right? I mean, in America, it's like this. Got people at the casino, they finish dinner, there's like an hour to the show, they'll stop by the whatever they want to do, craps table, they'll have a drink or two, shoot dice for like 45 minutes, and go to the show with their group, right? It's more like you're doing it on the way to something else.
Macau, a little different.
Macau, it's like, okay, I'm showing up, it's 10 a.m., okay, I'm having my green tea, no alcohol. I'm smoking. I got my pack of cigarettes, and I'm hitting it for 24 hours straight. I'm trying to break this casino. We're getting lucky.
Right.
So I mean, it's kind of the same approach to poker. I mean, there'd be VIPs that come play, and as long as they didn't lose whatever money they were like going to gamble with, they'll play a 36-hour session. So when I used to go to Macau, I'd regularly play, sessions like in the 20 to 40 hours. It was like very common. So yeah, so it was good.
Speaking, this just came to mind, and I don't know how, like, it's crazy because, like, again, I knew it. This is, for me, it's fun. Brian and I talk all the time. Brian's we travel. I know a lot about Brian and his stuff, but I didn't even have this on my list. Speaking of endurance, how about the bicycle ride? We got to talk about that. That wasn't even on the list. It was one of the most amazing bets I've ever heard of, been a part of, and this was a real sick one. Could you walk us through this bicycle bet?
But you should also show them this page.
Okay.
So on my website, if you go to the blog, before I start talking about it, on my blog, which I never blog anymore, I did. Last one was, I have 2 from 2018. But if you go down here to, I actually wrote 2 pretty in-depth blog articles about the bike bets. Because there's the bike, the bike bet that I did personally, but I also made money off of some other bike bets. It's a very interesting story of gambling. I bet on Dan Bilzerian. Then I had another bet that someone bought out of with me.
That's maybe the craziest one.
The other bet, I just had this string. I was like a biking professional that year.
You made more biking probably than the Tour de France guys. It's for sure.
So, it was a pretty sick. And obviously the second one here, you see Bike Bets Part 2. That's all about like my journey on the bike. It's very interesting. But, long story short, you should read and check this out. I got bet. I basically had no training on a bike. It was on a road bike, and I had 24 hours to prepare and leave, and bike from the Las Vegas, downtown Las Vegas or whatever, to Dan Bilzerian's house in Beverly Hills. It was a little over 300 miles, 48 hours. Just had to do the whole thing on the bike. I could take breaks if I wanted, but I had to complete the thing in 48 hours. So. That was it. And I couldn't draft. One of the controversies from which I talk about in these blog articles is, Dan Bilzerian drafted in his bet, which I don't believe he needed to do to win, but it definitely helped him. He didn't win. He smashed it. He had 48 hours and he drafted and he was using recumbent bikes and whatever. And he did it in 30 or 20, under 30 or something. And, he also had 2 months to train for it. So, I couldn't use recumbent bikes, which is this bike you see down here in Park 1. It's you're kind of more sitting down. They're a lot more comfortable. And I couldn't draft, which is pretty big because going from here to California, overall you go slightly downhill, although over something that long, there's definitely some uphill spots. But the hardest thing was there was a stretch where I was going into 25 mile per hour wind. And, that was really tough.
That was almost, the wind was a big factor.
The wind was a huge factor.
You could have not done it based on potentially a couple of different wind.
If the wind had been that strong for much longer of a period of time that I had to bike, I don't think I would have been able to done it. As it is, I had an hour and 20 minutes to spare, and I pushed myself to the max. I had developed an injury. I had to get a cortisone shot. The doctor met me to give me a cortisone shot on the road. I was it was tough. I literally pushed myself to my max. It's something I can take with me forever. I'm proud of it.
What was the wager exactly?
Yeah, it was 6-1. I got laid 6-1, 600K to 100K. So
and there's a lot of side action. I know I was in there, and there's some other people.
Some of my friends, it was cool because I actually won my friends I won my friends more money in total between all the guys that bet on me than I won for myself. So everybody had a good day on my back. I strapped people to my back and took them for a bike ride.
That was fun, man. That was definitely one of the more fun stories. Speaking of, we're looking here at Rast, over 20 million in live tournament earnings. More of no one maybe plays more cash game. Number 1 all time in Cali. That's nice. A lot of poker players in California. Talk about maybe your biggest winner too. I guess you've won the Players Championship, the 50K. How many times now? 2. You've won it 2 times, which is the most prestigious all-around poker player event that's in Vegas. $21 million in lifetime earnings. The one though, which was special, the High Roller Bowl, $500,000 buy-in for 7.5. What was that like? How did that feel? Was that sort of like a validation, or just kind of like, how does it feel to win that big of a tournament?
I mean,
you can even put like, does that change how you look at your career and stuff? Like, is that like a?
I mean, I probably won't top that win. I think there's a good chance. I mean, I'm a favorite not to, just given I probably won't play a ton more tournaments where you can win more than that in one, and so I'm a favorite not to top that. It was special. It was cool. It was a big win. I won a lot of money, and it was cool. I mean, there were a lot of great players in that tournament.
It's also high production value.
I think in retrospect, around the time when I won that tournament, probably at least up till now in my career, was around the not necessarily at that exact moment, was around the peak of my what I'll call my no limit hold'em tournament prowess, like relative to the field. I had been playing no limit hold'em as my main game, although mostly in cash games. But like if you look at my tournament, I've been playing poker since 2003, right? And like really, I don't even have that many results until 2011 when I start. And even if you look in 2011 and 12, those results are not based off that many tournaments. One of those was the Players Championship in 2011. I didn't play that many tournaments that year. In 2012, I also won a 100K. Like I wouldn't have cashed for $1 million, but it was like it was over $1 million in December. It's kind of like saved it or something. So, I mean, I didn't really start playing many tournaments until kind of like 2014. And then I started really, what happened is Kerry brought the Aria. I never traveled much for poker. Kerry brought the Aria series to Vegas, and I started playing those like 10, 25, 50Ks that would run. And I did go to Melbourne twice, but beyond that, I've traveled very little for poker and poker tournaments. But yeah, so what kind of happened is between years and years and years of playing No Limit Cash, I think I got very good at kind of like reading hands and understanding what people were capable of, and even exploiting people. And then I put a little bit of time into learning ICM. I started for the first time, I forget, like 2014 or something. I when I would travel, I'd play hyper sit and goes to study kind of like ICM spots and like run those spots, and push shove, because the hypers, like you got a lot of 10 big blind spots, but it really helps you with like what the ICM's saying you should or shouldn't do. And then worked a little bit on my short stack play, obviously playing those like heads up, 20 big blinds or less, and that really helped me with tournaments, right? Because playing cash, you have a lot of experience in, let's say, like post flop and like deep stack, but that helped me a lot with short stack, and also just playing more tournaments and getting the experience. And also like before solvers, like I think that the last 3 or 4 years, how good people have gotten because of their ability to study solvers has really, really changed the landscape of the top of like the no limit hold'em world. And I think I'm about as qualified as anyone to talk on that, and it's really changed it. I mean, there's a lot of guys who I think 3-4 years ago or before they definitely weren't like the best no limit hold'em players, and like some of the same guys are some of the best no limit hold'em tournament players now. They're putting in a lot of work studying solvers. I mean, you kind of see this happen with a lot of games. Look at backgammon, look at chess. Like there was a time before solvers, before like those games, you could find the best move on a program, and then after, and it really changes the way you're able to study a game. And I mean, now it's like, frankly, if you want to be a great no limit hold'em player, once you get good enough, you got to learn through other methods. I don't think you can just start not knowing poker and hop on a solver. It's too kind of complicated. But once you kind of learn, and you learn how to play through some other methods, whether it be training videos, reading books, experience, whatever, once you get good enough to use and interpret solvers, I mean, it's kind of like where you're going to get the golden information. Now, you're not going to learn how to exploit people, and when you're playing bad players, exploiting them is way more important than playing GTO. But once you're playing against really, really good players who are mixing up their play, they're randomizing, they're not giving off tells, they're maybe not giving off bet sizing tells, learning like how you're supposed to bet size in spots, like what the solvers say about how you should play your ranges, extrapolating stuff from that. I mean, it's really just hard to beat that. And so, I think that's changed the landscape of No Limit Hold'em in the last 3 years. And so, I have used some solvers, like we've talked on your thing about range converter and, PO solver and whatever. It hasn't been a real big focus of mine. It's been something I've done a little bit off and on to try to keep up with my No Limit Hold'em game, but I definitely am not putting in the kind of work that, a lot of the No Limit Hold'em tournament guys are, because, my biggest action is mixed games, various types of mixed cash games. So, I'm doing No Limit Hold'em more to kind of just keep up and learn. But, I'm looking back, I think around the time when I won that, it was a bit of a validation. Like, I think I was probably underrated back then at how good my No Limit Hold'em game was. Yeah. And, I maybe didn't even realize it myself at the time, because I've never really been one of those people who, like, I look at myself and I think like, oh, I play like the best and everyone else plays really bad, because I think people have this tendency in poker to always look at like the worst that other people play and kind of assume that they play that way. Yeah. Like, oh, this guy played this hand, like he must just be awful because he played this hand this way. But the truth is, like, everybody makes mistakes. Yeah, everybody
has a reason or does something.
Hands they play bad, and you can't always look at the worst. Like, a lot of people make really good decisions as well. Right. So, I've always kind of felt that way. But I think, looking back at the landscape of things and understanding what I do now, I mean, that was a period of time when I thought my No Limit Hold'em game was really, really strong, and I felt really, good playing with the competition, and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's not many people that don't make mistakes, There's only
everybody does.
There's only a few guys outside of, I know one guy named Shinman. They say doesn't ever make a mistake, but he's like a unicorn. So we're gonna talk a little more about mixed games. What would you say is your favorite game besides No Limit Hold'em? Or I guess maybe even No Limit Hold'em isn't your favorite game. What is your favorite poker?
I mean, I think No Limit Hold'em is a great game. It's a really beautiful game. I'm not a really big fan of. I mean, I'm using solvers a bit, and I'm okay. It's something I accept. Like, this is just the reality. This is the best way to study. This is what's happening. What you have to do to stay on top. There's a reason I like figuring things out on my own with my own brain. Right. I always loved that about poker, that you could never find an answer somewhere. Now you're actually getting to the point where things are getting broken down to where you can kind of find answers for like the right game theory optimal way to play. Now, it's not necessarily an answer about how to play against a player who's making mistakes and you can exploit, but it's still extremely powerful to learn the GTO way to play. What I like about mix, why I started getting into it, was I'm just very curious. I like learning. I always like new challenges, and so I kind of initially started learning mix like 5 or 6 years ago, just because I knew there was a big game in Vegas and I wanted eventually to be able to play it. And, there's action there, and I just like challenging myself. Right. I mean, I kind of like hopped in and was playing mix, probably bigger than that's what I've done my whole poker career. I mean, I learned PLO losing 40% of my bankroll, firing 25-50 PLO at the end of one WSOP on stars, like getting smashed. And then after that, I started playing PLO, and this was like 12 years ago or 11, 10, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I've always just been kind of the person who learns in a bit of a cavalier way, challenges myself, and then tries to force myself to step up, like put myself under pressure and then step up afterwards. And, it's worked out for me, although I can't say that it's always necessarily been the smartest or most well-planned out way to learn something. It kind of happened with mixed games too. And, that happened, and I was playing No Limit Hold'em tournaments too and focus on mix. And then kind of as people were getting better and better at No Limit Hold'em and, people are solvers, the mix action's already a little bit bigger, especially if you don't travel for No Limit Hold'em tournaments. And I just found myself doing well and playing more and more mix. And then kind of here I am, and now I guess I'm like an old man mix player and not as much of a tournament player anymore. Although, I think I can still hold my own, and I've been doing some learning, but I definitely feel like my edge is bigger in mixed game situations.
And is that something, like, if you had to pick tournaments or cash now moving forward, I mean, would you identify yourself more as a cash player than tournament? I mean, is that basically where you're at? Like you're saying, you'll like this, a special event, a great tournament, you see a good spot, you'll fire it, but you're not traveling the circuit. You're not looking to hop in all the high rollers all across the world. So
yeah, in fact, this really might be the only place I travel to tournaments for the whole year. And I've never even done this before, even though I was playing more tournaments from like whatever 2013 to 2017. I never came to the Bahamas even. It's pretty close, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you've been here 13, 14 years, right? Straight. I mean, I just, I've never liked traveling for tournaments. Like, I kind of view, like, once you factor in rake and travel expenses and everything, it's not really, like, I mean, it's not really that profitable compared to cash games anyway. Right. So, yeah, I'd say in my career, I've been mostly a cash game player. Right now, I'm doing about where I've been at my career. I'm mostly a cash game player who plays tournaments. Like, I have experience. I feel comfortable. I like my spot in a lot of tournaments. They're fun. I mean, you know, let's be real. Like, getting deep in a tournament, getting down, getting in the money, playing down to the final table, playing at the final table. I mean, it is a little more exciting than, like, even, you know, I'll be more excited playing. You know, this summer I won the Deuce to 7 no limit hold'em or no limit single draw bracelet. I was more excited at that final table playing for the difference between probably like 50K and whatever first was 200 something and the bracelet than I am in like just because you get used to, people get used to whatever they're doing in life, right? Like, I go and I play stakes that for most people would be like, holy shit, you know, you're sitting with 200,000 in front of you, like, this is crazy. But once you do that every day, it kind of just becomes the regular thing. Like, I play 2K, 4K mix, like, you know, that's just what I do. And, you know, but playing at the final table of a tournament, you don't get that every day. You know, so even if it's at some point, it's not even always about the money that gets you psyched up. It's about the situation, you know, it's about you know, it's just so fun when you're at the final table of a tournament and it's like, oh, you're still in. You're still in. You're still part of the group.
Look, there's 800, 1,000.
You're still part of the group, you know? Yeah. And then it's like, oh, that guy's gone. It's like, and then there were 5, and then there were 4. Yeah. You're still in. And then it's like, once you bust out, you're sad. You're just like not part of it anymore. You know? You're like, damn, I'm out. Yeah.
So
it's just something about that too, you know?
Yeah, there's something very unique about tournaments. Yeah. There's nothing you can replicate than getting a lot of chips deep in a tournament.
Yeah, you got a lot of chips.
It's fun. There's hype. People are looking at it. Your family's involved.
Yes.
You know, like all that. Your friends.
And just
are
like
watching.
The changing game situation. You're like, oh, it's like, you just, you know, you lost a flip. Now you have half your chips. You got 25 big blinds. Okay, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to play this? Boom. Oh, you win a whole bunch. You win a bunch of pots. You're the chip leader. Okay, like, how am I going to, like, max this? Like, how am I going to pressure and win chips? Like, you know, am I going to be patient? Am I really going to go animal style? Just the changing situation strategically, it provides so much, like, interesting stuff to think about. The way people are playing, the way other players are reacting to pressure. It's just like, there's nothing like it. I mean, it's getting in that flow state and zone. It's so much easier there. And honestly, that's one of the best things about playing poker. Like, it's one of the reasons why, I mean, there's so many people that burn out in poker. And at this point, I realize, like, I'm a bit of an exception. I mean, here I am. It's been 15 or 16 years. Like, I still, like, yeah, I'm playing poker. I like playing poker. Like, how many people really are doing that? Like, not many. You see so many guys, great players, with talented guys, but at some point they're like, they don't want to do this anymore, whether it's because they go in a downswing or they win a bunch of money, they kind of like want out. And I've realized, like, the thing that I think makes me different is at some point, like, I'm not like, yeah, like, I like the money a lot and I'm definitely doing it kind of for the money too, but I'm really also doing it for I like being under pressure. I almost need that. Like, I've always kind of been that way looking back at my life, just the way I was in school and whatever. Like, I like taking tests more. I didn't like homework. Like, you know, I like being under pressure. I like the way that makes me perform and feel. And pressure almost always makes me better, not worse. You know, and when I don't have pressure, oftentimes I don't care very much. I'm a little sloppy or whatever. I mean, I've even had an issue through my whole career and, like, focus. But I get really focused and I feel like I can hit that flow state and really, like, be playing my A game and in the matrix, you know, and the more pressure, the better for that. So, you know, I just like that feeling. I like that competition. And that's kind of like ultimately what brings me back. And it's also part of the reason why, like, you know, sometimes I go do things that aren't always the highest EV decision for me. You know, I'm not saying that it's minus EV, but like, you know, there's people playing mix on and off. It's questionable whether or not flying here to the Bahamas and all this, you know, even how good this tournament is, whether it was the highest EV decision. But, you know, during the World Series, it's definitely not the highest EV decision for me to sometimes go like fire up like a 10K or some 5K like dealer's choice tournament that maybe I really feel like playing after I'm done with the cash game in the evening, go late reg it. But I go do that stuff because it's like sometimes I just say like, what do I feel like playing right now? You know, I feel like doing this, like this is going to be fun, and I want to keep myself motivated and happy. And, you know, and I love how the World Series has now let you reg day 2, which, I mean, honestly, half the tournaments or more that I played this summer, I played like max late regging, like day 2 or whatever. So, I mean, that really got me in there more, you know, because even though they're fun, like it's hard for me to justify, like, even I realize it's higher EV, but at some point it's like, what's higher EV for me? Like I'm playing a cash game where like the big bet's like during the summer it was 6K, we were playing 4K, 8K, we're playing like, you know, 100K cap, like big bet mix stuff, you know, like I'm not grinding a day 1 even of a 10K. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like even if, you know, it's higher EV, like higher EV in a 10K tournament doesn't mean that much for me compared to like the stakes I play.
That makes sense. Guys, I see you guys in the chat. We do the live component here. We're going to try to get some of your questions. We do have a giveaway on Twitter, and you can ask a question, get the retweet out, help get the word out. Colin O'Reilly, Ghost Event, thanks for being here. Adventure Training Camp, good to see you. Some other friendly faces. We will try to Sheffield 16, my friend. Vadran, of course. Ghost Event, a lot of guys here. We want to keep the flow going. Rast is definitely dropping knowledge and, you know, very interesting stuff. A lot of, you know, wide range of the gambling, poker gambling, gaming world, side bets, prop bets. There's a lot of stuff you can talk about here, but it's definitely interesting. It's nice to get a glimpse into that kind of world. I mean, it is crazy stakes. What would you say is the was there a cash session? Like, you know, tournament scores are prevalent. You can see on Hen and Mob, all that. Is there like a one of those cash sessions you just ran like the sun? It was like you just never wanted to stop. The game was great. Is there a session that stands out?
Yeah,
maybe that's just
there's
like,
definitely a session in my career where it stands out that I just ran super good, and it was unreal. There was this one of the first times I went to Macau, because I was kind of one of the Macau white guy pioneers, whatever. I was over there. I remember. This was like not that long after the downturn, and live poker in Vegas went from being like awesome to like total shit. You know, like 25-50 with an ante game was going every day, and then all of a sudden the 10-20 no limit game could like barely run, and people would be buying it for $800, and you know, like, and it would break. It was, you know, after the crash, whenever that was, like 10 years ago or something, right? So. I remember I was looking around and we was like talking to my friend Keith and we were like, where are we going to go? Let's go somewhere. So we ended up going to Macau, and I kind of found it out. And then some summer we went back after having gone in the spring, and I went there for like the first 3 weeks of the World Series. And I played with some of the guys that on that trip during the summer who ended up being like Paul Foy I played with, who's like super heavy hitter in the poker world, ended up, you know, running the Star World game and this and that. And I played with him that trip. He was interesting. He was experimenting with things. Like you could tell he was a pretty sharp guy, just playing with him that summer. But I played with some other guys too, and it was some amazing games. Like, you know, a lot of super rich guys who clearly had barely ever played poker before. We were playing big stakes. There was one session we were playing 3K, 6K. I think I was playing with Ronald and some other guys, and we all agreed that if you won, anyone who won the pot had to show their hand. So, you know, because I think like some of the Asian guys wanted to see what we were doing, right? And but the truth is about something like that is in the long run, it's way better for like the beginner players, because like they actually will sometimes see something that will just open their eyes and they'll learn something, right? But for that session, it's definitely better for the pros, because like they kind of, you know, we haven't all played with each other a lot, but you know, you get to see like how they're playing right now. So I might not learn like how to play from that, but I do get to like learn exploitatively and shit, like what's going on right there. But I just to answer your question, like that session, I ran hot, I was winning pots, and I was bluffing a lot, and just like everything worked. It's like one of those sessions where, you know, and at some point too, like when you're just like clearly like I'm stacking people, you know, and when I say 3K, 6K, it was Hong Kong. So it's like 400, 800 or something US. Okay. But so it's just one of those things where I'm stacking people this, and people are afraid to play hands with me. But then you notice, like, you know, you've played with me, especially back in the past. I used to, especially in a session like that, I'd be out of line as fuck. Like, I used to be pretty notorious for being out of line, you know, back in the day also when people didn't really know how to deal with that. And you could just tell, I could just tell when someone had had enough, and I'd have it and stack them. Right. And then I'd bluff them. But it's the thing about the bluffs is you had to show every time, so they got to see.
Yeah, it's kind of.
I even had some sick check raise bluff versus Phil Lock, like where the board like tripped up low, and I check raised them, and I think he ended up folding like a big pair. Like he had a big hand. You know, I obviously sold him on the quads, and I would have never showed, but I had to show Phil, and I was just like everything was like working. It was amazing, and I had like this. I forget. Maybe I might have a picture somewhere, but I had this massive stack of just like this mountain. I've even had people come after that session and say, who had like walked by, like that session became like somewhat like legendary in like Macau, your whatever.
Staple, yeah.
Because that was like before, like there had been really big games, and apparently after that game, like some of the good games stopped, and like then that later they didn't want to play with white people anymore. So I got known as the guy who got white people like kicked out of Macau, and they took the game.
Macau glory for
and they started doing private games at another casino and whatever. But yeah, no, that session stands out just for everything, and just also the way it worked out with like the politics of stuff, and yeah.
It's kind of funny in how it works in the tournament world too, like, or in poker world. The more tournaments and results, the more scared you are. Kind of our view, and a lot of times makes you not as easy to get into games. But like, so in theory, like. Technically, playing cash games is maybe a little better overall, like just in terms of earning and potential. But it's a fine line. You do see some guys that are, you know, they can maneuver their way into both, and it really comes down to it's not necessarily set in stone, but I think that's a general rule. Like the more success you have in tournaments, the less people kind of want to play with you or fear you.
Yeah, because you do really well in tournaments. People assume you're good, and people know about you. And you know, but there's a bunch of guys who are great players who've played mostly only in cash games, and they're way less well known.
Right.
You know, so
yeah.
I mean, there were some guys who, you know, I've played with who don't really play tournaments, but have only played cash games. Who, you know, at least I don't know about anymore, but like back when I was playing with them, I thought they were some of the very best players, and you know, no one really knew about them. There's this guy who doesn't play poker nearly as much anymore, but his name's Andy Mosley. He's from England, and I used to play with him in Macau, and he was a great cash no limit hold'em player. He was like really, really good, and you know, I haven't played with him much in many years, but back in the day, like, and just nobody knew about him, but he just, you know, just flew up the limits in Macau. Like when I first went to Macau, he was playing way smaller, and soon he was like, I was playing with him, and that guy. He's a cool guy. I like him personally, but you know, he played amazing. So no one knew about him. But.
Okay, but did want to also touch on crypto. This is something you and I have spent a lot of time. I know I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. I don't know how many of you are that familiar or into. Obviously, crypto now is a little less hot topic. It's been a little cooled off. Let's try to even limit the time here on how long we spend. But I guess just give me your overall philosophy on crypto, the state of it, Bitcoin, what you know, long term. How you feel about it right now, and just sort of you've put it to me very articulately your thesis or your feeling on crypto. So it's I do want to cap it because I think it's super interesting, but it's one of those things we could do a show on crypto, of course, in itself, and I think people here are probably more for the poker type stuff, but crypto's interesting and also correlated.
So I'll give some people. Okay, so this guy that I really like on Twitter, his name is Murad, Murad Mahmudov. He has this really good podcast on Off the Chain with Anthony Pompliano. He was a guest. It's called Off the Chain, Murad Mahmudov, The Ultimate Bitcoin Argument.
This guy.
This is the guy. So he did a podcast, The Ultimate Bitcoin Argument. I think this guy's really sharp. I mean, he called down from 6K, but he's like super Bitcoin maximalist, like even more than me, like long term. You should listen to this podcast. I think it's got a lot of stuff that resonates with me that I really agree with, but he articulates it really well. So anyway, so to kind of like say what I think, this is the way I feel. Bitcoin is in the process of potentially becoming a money. So go back to that guy's page, you know? And I mean, as you see here, just to like even say, you know, this is like his idea of the progression of things, which, you know, I think is like a very reasonable progression. So like this up here, full global money, is kind of like, you know, the end game for Bitcoin. You know, Bitcoin has a monetary policy that's already laid out, unlike any other currency in the world, right? Every other currency is controlled by the country and their central bank usually.
They can print more.
They can do whatever the fuck they want with it. So, you know, for the US, that's been something that's like super good for the US, is that the dollar is kind of like the international reserve currency account of balance, kind of used a medium of exchange, the dominant one in the world. It gives the US, it's one of the most powerful things the US has going for it. But I think in terms of just people, if you look, like money that we have right now works great, but first, money gets inflated. All money gets inflated because every country is printing money.
Print it, yeah.
So what that means is like globally, everyone who has money, like if you're pretty poor or like middle class even, you kind of only have enough money to run your life. So it's not a big deal. But if you start accumulating money, you're richer, you're wealthy. At some point, because it doesn't make sense to hold on to money because it gets inflated less every year. Basically, it depreciates. So you have to find ways to like stick your money in shit, whether it's like the stock market or real estate or some kind of assets, because otherwise your money just keeps getting worth less. So it becomes this whole thing about investing your money. And you know, what if there was a currency that you could see like wasn't going to inflate like that? Basically, there was a set amount. So gold is kind of like what's being used right now. So people are storing their value in gold, and it's like used as like, I'm going to hedge against the inflation, or if something happens in like the world. But let's look at gold. Gold is this heavy metal. Yeah. You can't really cut it on your own, so you can't really divide it. You just like buy and sell the amount that you have, and it's hard to store. It's hard to send places.
You can't buy goods or services with it.
You know, it makes sense that like once upon a time, hundreds of years ago, people used gold for that, and because of that tradition, people are still using gold today. But like, what if we just invented something that you could divide almost infinitely up into any amount you wanted to send to anybody? You could instantly send it anywhere in the world. There was a fixed amount like gold. In fact, there's an even more fixed amount of Bitcoin. And basically, it couldn't be stolen from you. It was like very secure. So basically, it does gold better than gold in almost every attribute. So not only can it be a store of value like gold, but you can really use it like a money. Well, okay. Well, the answer to that is Bitcoin. That's exactly what Bitcoin's trying to be. And, you know, I think once you start studying Bitcoin, you realize, okay, yeah, sure, Bitcoin's this like created internet money, but what gives something value in life? Like essentially the only reason anything has value is because people decide it does. So it's like you're into like Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme. Well, I mean, anything, any money requires that people buy into using it as a money. So there's a little bit of Bitcoin that's a bit of what I'll call like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where it's only going to work if people all start believing it works and investing in it and using it as a money. Otherwise it won't work, right? But I don't think that makes it a fraud. That just means like it either will or won't become, as you see, ultimately a unit of account and full global money. And you know, we're still kind of a long way away from that. And I think like before we get there, Bitcoin needs to become more of like a store of value that's going to be used by like wealthy people to put money in, or people that want to be able to send large amounts like internationally, like instantly. I mean, even right now, like, and I think a lot of people in the poker world have kind of been turned on to Bitcoin because it's one of the easiest ways. Like, oh yeah, I have like 50K here and I want to bring it with me wherever, or I wanted to send it to some guy whenever I want to. And, you know, you don't have to deal with a bank that's only open 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, $30 fees, wait a day or two or more for your transfer to go through. Maybe it doesn't go through, But part of the reason why Bitcoin might work too. So think about this. Most of the people live in places in the world with either have autocratic governments or you can't rely on the currency. Imagine someone who is worth $100 million and they want to park 5 to 10 million of their wealth in something where no matter what happens, they go to jail or they have to leave the country, they can take some money with them. There's no better way to do that right now than Bitcoin. Like, there's just so many awesome use cases for it that, like, my personal belief is that, as people start realizing this and as people start actually using Bitcoin or realizing future use cases of Bitcoin, people will, like me, will put money into it, and it'll go, like, look at this chart, like, and there'll be greater liquidity, it'll become a reliable store of value, even greater liquidity, greater acceptability, recognized, medium of exchange, boom, boom, and eventually it'll be a money. And now we're talking about a market cap of like many trillions of dollars, and like a Bitcoin will be much more than it is now. And as an investment, the reason why I think Bitcoin is one of the best possible, is simply because like Bitcoin's like 3 or 4K right now.
4K. Yeah.
This story working out has Bitcoin going to 200K, 400K, a million, depending on, or more, depending on what, how long of a time frame we're talking about, where on this chart does it just become a store of value like gold? Does it end up becoming a global money? Does it end up becoming a reserve currency? Like, think about this. Russia, China, many countries keep billions and billions, maybe trillions of dollars as a reserve. Like, they're storing money that they can use to like buy things internationally. But they all know that ultimately gives the US power. Like, that money becomes worth less if we have a financial crisis and we do quantitative easing again and we just print a bunch of money. That makes their money worth a lot less because we're creating money out of nothing. So imagine one day Bitcoin's large enough where a country feels like, hey, instead of storing just dollars, like, we're going to store Bitcoin also, right? Or any other digital currency that does the same thing as Bitcoin. But I believe it will be Bitcoin for a number of reasons.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, you're talking like, so this bet right now that you're making, you're not buying Bitcoin because in a year, I think it's going to do all this. This is a 5, 10, 20 year bet about what I think like the potential future economic landscape of the world will look like. And from my point of view, there's just too many things that make a lot of sense to me about Bitcoin. And so therefore, and the bet's not like, it's not like a 1-to-1 bet. We're talking about 100-to-1 on the upside potentially and 1-to-1 on the downside. So it's like, do I think it's over 1 or 2% that this will happen? Yeah, I think it's way over that. I think we're talking 30, 40% or something. Who knows that like something like this will happen, right? And you're getting paid 100-to-1 on it. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go fire your whole net worth into it. But to me, it's just one of those things where, if you have some money that you're like, I don't care if I lose this money, and I want to make like a long-term kind of like asymmetric bet with a lot of upside, and just lose whatever I put into it on the downside. I think Bitcoin is something to do that. And we were talking about this before, and Jeff and I have talked a lot of crypto. I'm not really a big believer in the other stuff in the space. Like, blockchain's like okay. But to me, the thing that really makes sense, or the real use of blockchain, is becoming like a digital money. Like, everything else might make sense, but like for the most part, I think most of the tokens are just ways for the people that make the token to like make money by selling it before they've done anything. And most tokens are only going to be worth like the network value or the network resources that go into like running the network to use what the token does. But Bitcoin makes sense because I think it will be used as a store of value in digital money, and therefore will be worth like the future market cap of that, and not just the resources used to run Bitcoin nodes and process the network. So, that's a abbreviated thing. Like, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like it. I think that puts in pretty good perspective. It is a little bit of a rabbit hole. It's a deep, it's a pretty complex thing. That's
very complex.
That I'm a believer in as well. And, I think it's time will tell, but yeah, we have our opinions, and I think there's a lot of people out there that's a little bit, I guess if it goes to ETF, right? If it's a way where my parents can call up and hit their broker at Fidelity and say, hey, I want 10,000 worth of Bitcoin, that's going to be a lot easier. There is some, I think, anxiety about holding it, the treasures, the keys, stuff gets lost. It's a little bit more of like our generation even, where, even looking at for custodial type stuff, like I know friends, I have people I know of that have lost stuff or had, like, it's a little intimidating. It's like people, they're kind of more, our generation and below, I think can be adopted more with technology and stuff, but it's a little scary, I think, for older type of, people to really wrap their head around and tell, oh yeah, Dad, it's okay, just here, keep a treasure, it's worth money. It's just like, it's hard to really process for certain people, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are intimidated by that and the treasure. I mean, the flip side is, if you're able to, and it's not that hard, like this is what I would say for a treasure, just to even talk about it. It's like, okay, say you buy a treasure. You're gonna have to like make a 24-word key, okay? I would put that in a safety deposit box somewhere separate.
Right.
If you ever lose your treasure, you just go to wherever that is, you get it, you recover, you buy another treasure. You can like use that to set up that treasure to access the same Bitcoin, the same wallet that your other one had. You can recover your coins that were accessed through the treasure you lost. So it's safe. And actually, so what that means is if you lose your treasure, you can still recover your coins. Right, they're not lost.
That happened.
Okay, and what this also means is because you can only recover those coins, like say through that treasure or that digital wallet, technically your coins can't be taken from you if you don't want them to. Unlike any other asset you own, anything you own, like if they want, like the government can seize it from you, but they can't really seize knowledge from you, knowledge of your coins. They can't. They could probably say, we're going to increase your jail sentence or whatever if you don't, but you have the decision whether ultimately you're like, well, fuck you, U.S. government, or whoever, even a guy with a gun to your head. Let's say you're 70 years old and you have 100 million in Bitcoin and someone puts a gun to your head and they're like, give me your Bitcoin. And you're just like, well, I mean, I guess I'd rather die because I'm old anyway, or you don't even have to be old. I'd rather die and have my family like keep this than give it to these fuckers. You could do that, and unlike anything else where you could say that to these guys, but like if it's in your house, if it's gold bars and it's safe in your house, they could shoot you and then take a truck and take your safe and your gold bars, but they could take your treasure and they wouldn't be able to get your Bitcoin. So I'm just saying, like, Bitcoin has some features of security in a way once you understand it, and there's even stuff that goes beyond this that I don't want to get into, that go beyond anything that we have right now. Like the amount of security that you actually have, that it can't be taken from you. So, yeah, I mean, it's intimidating, and I get that. And maybe it's true that for a lot of people, there needs to be solutions such as ETFs or whatever where they can buy it, because most people don't want to learn how to do it. But, one of the things a lot of leaders in the thought space say about Bitcoin is if it's not your keys, it's not really your Bitcoin. Because all the things that I'm telling you about, like the amazing security things, they come from you ultimately having the keys to your Bitcoin. An ETF, obviously the keys are being held by whoever is like holding the Bitcoin for the ETF.
Yeah.
Right? So you are losing that as a security, but you're using Bitcoin and then just purely as a store of value and money. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, okay. If you guys have any more questions about Bitcoin, you can send some tweets if you guys want. We do, again, have a giveaway / way to get out some questions here on my Twitter. I think we've seen a bunch now. It looks like we can go through and open some of these time. At the end of the show, we'll go through and look. I think we've got at least 17 remarks. I think Rast has got it up pulled too. We can go through and look at some of these in a bit, but I wanted to go touch on it. We got 20 people live in here. We got a venture training camp. That's All American Dave over in Fiji. What's up, brother? No snowmobile trip talk. Snowmobile trip, man.
Dave.
All American Dave.
Miss you, bro.
He'll be on. Gotta shout out Malachi, Amanda, the family over there, man. We've had some snowmobile trips. We've had Burning Man. I think we have to cover Burning Man. But just a quick rundown of that. How many times have you been to Burning Man? 2, 3?
No, definitely
more.
Either 3 or 4. I don't remember.
And what would you be your take on that for those out there maybe don't even know what Burning Man is? Let's just get the images.
I think Burning Man is it
gets me hyped up when I look at the pictures.
A really awesome experience. It's just something totally different. It's very unique. I think people will be able to find many different things at Burning Man. It kind of depends on how you approach it, right? If you want to approach Burning Man as like, I love electronic music and I want to go listen to some like really sick sets and party and dance, okay, Burning Man is like an amazing place for that. It's not the most convenient, but the music is like sick. Like, I love electronic music, but I don't like just the produced shit that you listen to at like nightclubs in Las Vegas. I kind of really don't like that pop, electro, whatever you want to call it. But I love, you know, this kind of stuff like the deep house and there's so many different kinds. So I don't even want to say just deep house, that where like these DJs are finding these songs and mixing them and like the sets at Burning Man, like you'll agree. It's like for me, like, and I love electronic music. That's one of my favorite things. If you want to go to Burning Man and like find a more like kind of spiritual experience, like there's things like the temple where people, you know, are dedicated to like loved ones or things they've lost in their life. You know, if you want to go and retouch with kind of humanity in a way, or like kindness, you know, that's definitely a theme of Burning Man, like going around and giving and helping. Yeah. And self-reliance, like you go there, you're supposed to take care of yourself, you're in the desert.
There's no money, it's gifting. It's
no money, gifting.
It's pretty sick. This is actually
a lot of cool art every year. Like this, like people just built this and it's there for you
this
to
was
enjoy.
Actually, this was in 2014. This was the first year I went. This is one called Embrace. I believe, unless they made a similar one the next year. That's where I met my wife at the burning of this in 2014.
Yeah, I was there with you.
Yeah, I learned Rast taught me my first Portuguese word, saudades. He told me, I remember leaving when I was like, what should I text to her? Give me a Portuguese word, and Rasty came through with some heat. So yeah, it's pretty amazing experience. So anyway, but Rast and I have both been there together, and with a big group of poker players. A lot of poker players in our camp, about 120. I mean, you name it. Some of the biggest crushers, all under one roof. It's a lot of fun. And Antonio's one of the big advocates and gets it organized with General Lee. Shout out to Lee Mershon. So that's Burning Man.
This was one of the. This thing was sick.
I don't know if I saw that one.
Yeah,
what year was that?
That might have been my first year, or I don't remember.
It says 2013.
Yeah,
so that was the year before I went.
This was this thing was amazing, and I mean, fucking sexy ass human sculpture. No, but it's like almost like realism. I don't know. That thing was amazing, man.
Yeah.
And it was like wire. It had lights in it, so it like lit up at night. And
yeah, I didn't see that one.
The muscle, and it had different light. It had like the muscles, and then it had just other colored lights. That thing was sick.
Yeah, there's some cool installations and experiences here. All right, let's dive off of Burning Man and tackle another area. I know you've been working a lot on talking about sort of self-improvement, life and betterment. So I'd say like kind of what motivates you in poker and in life. What are some things outside of poker that is there water? You want a water? Yeah, give us a little bit like what kind of motivates you, I guess, for the things that are not poker related. I know we were talking now. Your son Krishna, who is
family is probably
one of the more
the biggest thing. I mean, I love my wife a lot. She came to Vegas. She went through a lot to make our relationship work. She came to America when she didn't speak the language. A lot of things she still doesn't even really like that much about Vegas. But I learned about how to be a father. I mean, I got thrown into being a stepfather, and it was tough because he loves his genetic father, and and missed him, and it was weird. And I'm like this new guy with his mom, kind of, and I mean, he definitely resented me, but Juliana did it's really a lot of credit to her in helping navigate the relationship between me and him, and talking to him when it was right, talking to me when it was right. And one of the things that she definitely taught me was, listen, you're the adult, okay? Like, he's a kid, and if certain things like this happen, because something would happen maybe, and he would react a certain way, and I would get hurt, and I'd kind of, not want to deal with it as much, or not saying I'd be mean, but like it would affect my like open and lovingness. And so like she helped me navigate through that, and always told me like, he's gonna be your best friend when you get older. Like, he's just like you just don't see it. Like, you guys are so alike. And I've just my wife has just been right about everything with that. And You know, I think one of the moments that happened in the last couple years is when I started to realize, like, wow, my son realizing his dreams now, like he's trying to become, and you know, because Jeff has gone to one of his games here in Miami, staying in Miami, playing with Juventus. But he helping him realizing his dream is like one of my biggest dreams now. Yeah. And it's like weird thinking that, because that's not something I had ever really felt before. Right. You know, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do my thing in life, and I'm gonna rely on myself, and I'm gonna push myself. But part of that was also like other people's dreams weren't my dreams. You know, I had my dreams and what I wanted, and I was gonna do what I needed to accomplish them, and not rely on other people for it. But now it's kind of like, oh, like, wow, I really want to help my son. And whether it's like, if it's financially with something or something, but also just like with my advice, you know, I think at least as a man, like navigating the world, pushing yourself, like discipline, perseverance, like all these kind of things, you know? So so it's like my family's number one, but also just like various types of self-improvement. I mean, I think in life, everyone has their strengths and their weaknesses personally, you know? And I think definitely for me, like being married, being in a relationship, being with someone, you know, you learn a lot about yourself. And I think one of the keystones or cornerstones of like any good relationship is that it like makes you better. Right. You know, you learn with your wife, your partner, whoever it is, rather helps you, teaches you the things that you're not doing right, you know, supports you,
gives you
but
honest feedback,
also holds you accountable a bit. And and so I you know, I'm trying to improve as a person, like, you know, whether it's like lowering my anxiety, you know, learn how to like focus, like meditate, you know, channel things, like keep, you know, I don't know. So a lot of personal improvement too. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna get ready we'll take some questions here in a little bit, but why don't we go and check on? Oh yeah, give us a little bit. What in your free time? What's something that?
Oh yeah, family too. Like we're gonna have some babies. Is it yours? Yeah. Yours official, right?
Yeah, I got. Mine's due end of April, so you know we both are married to Brazilian women, very family oriented, which is awesome. I think that's a very strong characteristic of, you know, not stereotypically, but the Latin family is very close, connected. Even so, living after college, like the kids live at home a lot. It's different, you know. But like my wife's family is enormous, and it's great. So I'm looking forward to having my own. And yeah, it would be cool if you have a kid around the same time. You know, I know you're talking about that, going that route, which is great, and it'd be sweet to. You know, a lot of our friends we know have kids, 1, 2, 3-year-olds right now. It's a fun time, but it's also busy.
It's a big responsibility.
It is.
You know, you're shaping something. I mean, one of the things too, it's like, not even put it on the same level, but like, you know, my wife and I got this German Shepherd. It's like this beautiful dog that never barks at anyone. It's super like loving and peaceful. And at some point, like, you know, the dog's like 4.5 now, and it's like my wife and I are like proud. It's like you're proud that, like, you know, we made this beautiful creature. Right. You know, we trained it. It's obedient. It's fun. It's loving. It gives love. It doesn't bark or bite people. And it's like, you know what? It's like, let's like ramp that up 20x in difficulty and do it with people. You know, like create these people. And it's a big responsibility though, you know. And not that everything that happens with them is going to be your fault, but a lot of it is as the parents, you know. So you got to give them love. You got to teach them right and everything. And you know, I don't know. I'm looking forward to that. I've got some of that hopping in when he was like 9 and he came to America, but you know, a lot of the more formative ones I didn't. So we're both about to jump in that. You know, it's a big responsibility, man. But it's gonna be great.
Yes, it is. It's coming. Let's talk.
You gotta embrace the responsibility.
I know.
Jeff. I'm in.
I'm embracing it. I'm embracing it. I'm ready to go. Let's dive in here to those that are talking about the PSPC. I just want to quickly. I know again, Rast used to playing a lot of. This is definitely going to be, and maybe you could touch on. I think the most similar that you made a thing. It was back to like the WPT 25Ks back in the day. Those got some 3 million type prize pools. Unbelievable events.
First. Yeah. Prize pool, nothing, man. Like
3 million
the year, that really good year, it was over 3 years of first that Joe Bartholdi won or something.
What year was it?
I almost final tabled one of those. That was the closest I ever got to final tabling a WPT. I got hosed on 7th in a huge
It was
pond.
here, right?
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah.
This was.
Yeah, right there. I lost ace king to kings in a 4-bet jammed ace king, and the guy who opened, not even the 3-better, had the kings. So. But.
Wow. And so, wow. So look at these familiar faces, man. Scotty Nguyen, legend. This guy, Scotty Nguyen has a pretty impressive resume. Even this year in the 25K, like PLOs and stuff. He's in there. Shannon Short, all-time great. Christian Harder, great. I mean, he's a lot of familiar faces here. This is the only guy I don't recognize. Was that the guy? Or who was? Do you remember?
No, it was Yevgeny was the one who
had ace king.
Yevgeny actually won with ace king to kings before I busted to survive when we were like 7 or 8 handed. But yeah, no, that was before I had really broken through really in tournaments, and you know, I felt like I had a long string of like kind of just stuff not working out like deep in tournaments like that. You know, I had I think maybe that same year or within a year of that, there was like the 40K 40th anniversary 40K WSOP. I lost with kings to 5s to the guy who won. What's his Sorrell always used to joke about that guy's name. I forget.
Oh, Valtali Lunkin?
Yeah, Lunkin
This
vibes.
one right here?
Yeah. Lunkin vibes. 14th. He got it in. Basically, we had the same chips. It was kings, his 5s. He made quads versus my kings. And I was like, oh, man, just like...
It is funny looking back
at tournaments. Like, nothing ever goes right for me. But, you know, then eventually things went right. So, you know, I definitely cannot complain anymore. Oh, my God, Keith Lear. Keith Lear made it deep in that one. Yes.
I
play with Keith all the time now. He's actually here for this.
Yeah, he's been around in the mix for a long time.
He's been around forever. He's been playing poker way longer than me. But yeah.
I was trying to find a tournament that we played in the Keith Lear. Yeah, it's funny, man, looking back at these. I think it was this one. Yeah, I got deep in this. I 4-bet jammed ace 10 off into Igor had jacks, and he folded, and Keith Lear had kings. And, yeah, I remember that one. That was a fun one. The 6-max, that was a pretty good turnout. 25K 6-max back in the day. This is like sort of at the heyday of when tournaments were really jamming back then. Yeah, so, all right, we're going to talk about the structure here quickly. Just if someone's asking how do you prepare, differently for this. I mean, I'd say like Rast and I we are looking over some range converter stuff. Shout out to Craig over there. We'll put that link in below the stream. But I mean, really, I would say in particular, like this is just something we're gonna, Rast, if you want to answer in terms of preparing necessarily. I
don't really prepare for anything specially anymore. I just come and play. I mean, I'm here a little bit. I came early with Jeff, but a lot of it's more rather than like actual poker preparation. It's more just like physical, mental preparation. I got here early. I'm not going to be jet lagged. We've worked out a couple of days. We're going to work out again tomorrow before the tournament. About poker preparation, not that it's specifically for anything. I came to Jeff a couple months ago and was like, Jeff, these are some things that I know are happening right now. We got to go find something like this. And Jeff and I sat down on a computer. He found this like range converter thing. We got in contact with Craig. We're now using that. I had already kind of been using PO Solver. I use that a little bit. But I don't sit down and like, I'm going to play this tournament. Like, I'm going to study for 8 hours now to prepare for it. As I play, I get hands. I try to talk about hands. I run hands that I think are interesting in PO. We might look, probably tonight we're going to look a little bit at range converter, but, no special preparation for me.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I think it's also a bit of not a mistake, but it's like you're not gonna invent the wheel the day before. Like you do your studying, you kind of put your time in before. It's okay to talk about something if there's a hand, like you said, we got something we want to look at or interesting, or maybe a spot that we want to, go over a hand or two. But other than that, it's not going to be like exactly not going to be a 7-8 hour study session. I want to take some other questions here. I see a lot of you guys again. There is a retweet giveaway here. I see 38 people going to be eligible. We got 20. We'll let 39 people, 17 that have clicked on it. We'll jump through here.
Yeah, I'm going to answer this question because I think it's a good one. What's the most tilting thing I see from other players at the table? It's like a group of things. I guess to like give it a broad thing, it's like a player's like inability to handle himself at the table, and to more specifically say what I mean. So like, first, like really bad treatment of dealers. That's really tilting. Second, really like bad treatment of other players. Like I hate it when I see people berate other people. Like that to me is like ridiculous. Like someone wins a hand and plays it badly and they berate them. I mean, honestly, I've even seen that in Bobby's room with a couple people. It's like, it's crazy. Like if someone plays a hand bad, first, why would you tell them? Like that's just dumb. You're not trying to make people, especially people you're literally playing against right now, better, or that you're going to play against regularly. Like, I don't get it. And the other thing, too, is even beyond that, just, like, personally, the lack of, like, respect that you're going to tell someone something and, like, make them feel bad in a public situation, shame them in front of other people. Like, that, like, both of those things together. So, like, from, like, a professional standpoint, but even from just a personal standpoint, that you're just, like, publicly shaming someone for doing something bad. Like, and usually it's because you, like, need to prove something for your own ego.
It's also, I think, a lot of times
people
have issues, stuff at home. There's underlying things. I think it's like, there's bigger things.
Yeah, but it's like, dude, I mean, you can say whatever, but it's like it's like publicly shaming someone. It's like strong. And the other thing that tilts me,
I'm saying I think they have something going on in their own personal space that's like not right. But
I also don't like it when people whine and complain. If they're losing and things are going really bad, I'll sort of like be okay with it, just because it's like, okay, you're having a rough day. You want to like let it out a little bit, like bitch about like, oh, this unlucky,
whiny
fuck
winners.
This. Like, okay. But I hate fucking whiny winners more than anything. If someone's like, dude, I've literally been in games where it's like the only winner like loses a pot and starts fucking complaining, and it's just like you want to just like break the guy's neck.
You almost wonder if
like,
they're trolling you. Like, are you for real or not? Like,
no, some people are just psycho, dude. I don't want to give names, but you're just like, this person just is fucking a total psycho.
Right. No, it's a sickness.
That's whiny winners are the worst. So those are the things: whiny winners and dealer mistreaters and people who berate and put other people down at the table.
I see Vader and Ghost of M Legends helping out. Thanks, guys. I want to say a couple questions from Colin O'Reilly, man. He's been a big supporter of the podcast and been dropping in some stuff. So we've been touched on this. So, yeah, would you say implementing the use of solver in your study and what kind of impact has it had on your game? We've talked about this already.
We talked about it a little.
So I'd say it's a good question, kind of covered for the most part with, it does have an impact to some degree. You're using it. You're aware of it. You know what's going on. You know people are using it. Yeah. And you're in tune to it.
I mean, I would say, and I want you to answer this question too, in terms of the impact it's had rather than just implementing it. I feel that since I've started using range converter, like I feel like not only do I think I'm playing better, although I could be just saying that because I think this is right, but I feel more comfortable in some spots, like playing tournaments, especially like the small blind, big blind spots. I think that's really helped me like shape up like what I'm supposed to be doing in a lot of those spots, and giving me a structure that now I'm like kind of implementing something. And I don't know. I mean, the stuff I've learned there like makes sense to me. Like I get like what it's saying and like why it's a better way to play. So I don't know. It's made me feel a lot better about some pre-flop stuff. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way of even if it's like one or two spots or blind sizes in situations that are frequent. Like if you're making adjustments or realizing something that you were maybe doing differently or that you find a way to improve your game in a spot, it's a big deal. It could be a very little thing that you're doing that's like a big deal that you get fixed. So I think it is important to really to go over that and to feel confident too. Because it's like, it's like when you're in a game and you're like kind of like, oh shit, like here I am again. I'm in the small blind. I got pocket fours. I have 17 big blinds. Do I just jam? Or like, what am I doing and why? Like even just knowing that you feel confident is big. So I'd say that's important.
Definitely. And the other thing about it too, I think is like when you start looking at stuff, I mean, it's definitely a bit intimidating. It's just like grid and all this, like you do this with these hands and this with these hands, and it's like, okay, fucking, and there's so many different spots in this. I mean, one of the biggest things to learn whenever you're doing it is try to like look and learn principles. Like, why is it that you're doing this with this? Because one of the things like I've noticed even looking at like, say, range converter is there are certain principles that like, this is why you're doing this. Like, this is why, say, cutoff or button raises and you're jamming like these hands with like 20 bigs from the big blind, right? And then that same thing, like some of those same hands, or some of the same hands where it's folded to you, 15 or 20 big blinds in the small, like, what are you jamming versus what are you raising or limping, right? I mean, it's like some of the same hands for some of the same reasons. You know, it'll be like the offsuit aces in the small pairs, and like, you know, maybe some mid-suited connector-ish stuff, you know? So, and if you think about that, it makes sense, because these are hands that have decent when called all-in equity, but you're definitely very happy taking down the pot with, you know? I think, like, looking and finding principles and, okay, so like, why is the solver saying this, and what does that mean? And will also help you remember it, apply it to other spots, remember when to apply it to other spots when you see different in-game situations or different things. Like, ultimately, you're trying to learn how to play. You're not just like memorizing a grid.
Right.
You know, because like, you're not going to be able to memorize like every grid.
Yeah,
really.
Every spot, like 12, 15, 13 blind and spot. You know, it's, you just have a general idea. You start looking at the matrix and you start realizing, oh, these hands have more value. These hands are good. You know how you want to play. So yeah, I think it is cool looking at razor edge, range converter, those type of tools. We are gonna go. Let's see. Do you know where Belarus is? Do you know any Belarusian poker players? Do you have any Belarus love out there? Anything in particular? Do you know anyone you play with?
I don't know. I might know someone from Belarus.
You know where
but
Belarus
I don't know
is,
that
though.
they're from Belarus. Yes.
Okay.
And I know where Belarus is roughly.
Give us a book. What book do you recommend? You got any books? You just told me one today.
Yeah, like, I think Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. That was the one I recommended to you.
Yeah.
For a certain reason, but I'm gonna keep on the DL for a moment. But like, that was a great book.
All right, and Santa Claus. I don't know. I guess it doesn't have to be Santa Claus. If you knew he would grant that one wish, I guess. If you got a wish, what would be some wish?
It would be for Krishna to become a world-class soccer player. That would be it.
Wow, outward focus. Didn't even take the PSPC 4 million plus that's hanging this week.
I mean, that would be great.
That's a nice one,
but
too.
But that wouldn't be my Santa Claus wish.
Right. Someone's starting in poker. What would be some advice? They're starting right now. They're seeing the podcast. They're fucking fired up. They're like, you know what? Poker's hard now, but I don't want to do a 9-to-5 BS thing that I don't enjoy. I want to play it some. What would be your one tidbit? Give them something. Give them something. Give them a kingly advice. Put them on the right path.
I mean, you have to approach poker like every decision I'm trying to make the best decision, and that has to really be like your motivating driving factor. It's not like you like gambling. It's not like this. You can't let your emotions get in the way. It's just every decision, every hand, you're just trying to make the best decision, and that's it. And I mean, one of the reasons why poker worked for me, even just from the beginning, is like, I'm one of those guys who, when I start, like, I always love playing games, but like, the thing I love about games is figuring out strategically, like, how to play them the best, right? Like, I like figuring that out. Like, I like that. Like, if you don't really like that, poker's probably not for you. Like, you're just gonna be a fucking gambling punter, which is great. Like, please play poker, but you're not gonna, not if you want to win. Right. You know, like, listen, poker's great. It's amazing. It's challenging. It's fun. You don't have to play poker in order to try to be like an amazing professional. You don't, you know, I mean, that's like what I do, but you can play poker recreationally, right? Like, you don't have to, but, you know, if it's like you're starting out to play poker and you want to win, like, that's one of your biggest goals. You want to get better. You have to approach poker from that standpoint of like, you know, I'm trying to make the best decision to win chips in like every spot, you know, not let your emotions get in the way, not be playing for like some other reason. And if you find yourself playing for some other reason, you know, I really feel like gambling tonight, you know, okay, well, if you want to play poker that way, that's fine. But if you decided that's not what you want to do, which probably most people who are listening to this podcast, I would guess, maybe take that night off. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's what I'd say.
Okay. Yeah, I would also say my advice would be, if you're starting to play poker too, is make sure you have some supplemental income, or you're not just like, you know what, quit your job, send in your notice, and just hop in the tables. Like, learn, study it, kind of ease into it. Don't put so much pressure on yourself where it's all or nothing. I think that's super important, and probably
I mean, I think almost everybody, you kind of learn when you're doing something else, and then if it starts really working out, maybe you drop the other things that you're doing and you stick with poker. But yeah, I mean, you know, I wouldn't just quit everything and hop into poker.
Definitely not recommend
It's tough, and it doesn't work for everybody. You know, there's just a mix of things that you need to learn that some people develop and other people just don't. So you know.
How many events do you think you're going to play here? We've gone over this a little bit. You got the 25K for sure. And
I'm going to keep it day by day. Definitely playing this 25K. I've talked about this with Jeff. Actually, I had told him, like, listen, Jeff, if I bust, I don't want to throw this negative energy out there, but if I bust this 25K on day 1 or 2, I could just fucking get the fuck out of the Bahamas.
Because like, I don't want to wait around. Here, though.
But the setup is nice, and it looks like my wife is coming tomorrow, which makes it very likely that I'll be here. She's coming for like 3 or 4 days, and then she's going to leave. But by the time she leaves, the 10K is going to be going and stuff. So even if this 25K doesn't work out for me, which definitely it's going to, because one of us is going to take this down. I'm just throwing that out right now.
We're going to get a good night's sleep. We got our workout in the morning. I got my Elliott roll call. I mean, we're set up for success. Things are happening.
Play the 10 and 25K. Honestly, I don't want to. I definitely on this trip am looking to be healthy, looking to spend time with people. I don't know if I'm going to play the 100K or is there a 50K? I didn't even know that.
There's a 1-day 50.
I didn't even really bring like a ton of money out here. I've got 80K on my Stars account. Like I kind of came out here with the intention of just firing that into tournaments. And so, you know, once that's gone, I don't know what I'm doing.
How is it like being a friend of JG? Oh, that's interesting. On the spot. You're on the hot seat.
It's like JG is a great guy, like a really conscientious friend. I mean, JG is a person who, more than almost any other friend I have, like kind of like thinks and kind of almost plans for his friends. I mean, like, I remember this when we went to Montreal, you and me, like years and years ago. I just remembered JG. It's like, I was like, JG, like I didn't bring that. JG's like, don't worry, man. Here's shampoo for you. Here's something. I'm just like, holy shit. Yeah, this guy is like so conscientious.
We're ready to go. We got stuff.
So JG's just like a great friend in that way, because you know, he's there. He's got your back. JG's like super fun. He's almost always just like positive and upbeat and fun to be around. You know, always got something interesting to say, fun to do. And it's not like, it's just like who he is. It's not some genuine thing that he's like bullshitting or faking, which like I could never abide, because I'm just not the kind of person that can abide bullshit. But, you know, he's just genuinely like a fun guy and a good friend. And, you know, that's why he's one of my good friends, because I like being with him. Right?
You know, we're here. That's why we're here. We're hanging out.
That's why all you guys are here.
We're podcasting and we're live with you guys.
You guys know he's fun. He's fun to like run the podcast.
We're doing it. We're doing it.
I don't know how we're got his thing. He's got his mic.
I don't even know how we're gonna quit it. I don't want to stop, so we're gonna have to.
JG does his thing. He adjusts his mic.
We go live. We get hyped up. We might even go. Who knows what we could do today? We could go. We could do anything.
Go forever.
Yeah, we might just keep going. How did you meet your wife? That's a cool one. Shout out to Brazil, man. Prazer, all the Brazilians out there.
Oi,
tudo bem?
Conheci minha mulher na Rio de Janeiro.
I see some Brazilians that are around. Yeah. I know they're in the mix usually. So give us the story. How did it go down?
I went down with Phil. So Phil Locke was telling me, you know, it's like, Brian, listen, we got to go to Brazil with me sometime. You got to do it. It's a great country. I've been down there a few times. You're gonna love it. So sure enough, sooner things kind of like worked out in my life in a way. I was like, okay, Phil, let's do it. So we went, and we were just going out, drinking. I met my wife when we were out one night.
What year?
I met my wife January 9 years ago, this January. So it's been 9 years.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and I met her. We were out. It was like, didn't speak. I mean, she spoke Portuguese. I spoke English. I had taken Spanish in high school. She also spoke some Spanish and French. And, you know, we communicated some in Spanish pretty soon. Like, it was just kind of love at first sight, man. I mean, nothing like this had ever happened to me. We both said I love you in the 4 days that we were together. And, like, I went back. You know, we immediately applied to get her a visa to come visit me in the U.S., it got rejected by our amazing government because like they just like, no, someone can't visit you. You know, we don't care if you're a citizen. Like, fuck you. So then I started going that way, long distance relationship, and I was like, I started going there, making trips. We would talk on Skype. I kind of learned Portuguese from visiting her, or friends and family didn't know English. I'd just be thrown in the fire. And then also on Skype, everything was in Portuguese. I was like copy pasting to Google Translate, and I just learned Portuguese doing that. So I never wanted to learn a language. I just was like, I travel. English is like good enough everywhere to get by. But, you know, love changes things, right? Changes you.
Got you smashed in there. That's nice. I wish my wife my Portuguese should be further along. I'll say that, but I do understand. You know, a couple. I can get by some basic understanding. Aussie Millions. You've been a few times. Is there any upcoming? You're not really traveling so much, right? That's not on the horizon to go back to Australia per se.
Not going back to Australia for Aussie Millions. Not happening. This year, my wife and I want to plan one trip to somewhere cool that we want to go to, and other than that, there'll probably be very little poker traveling. Gonna think about having some kids, finish our house remodel. It's become a mess of a project I don't want to get into, and
yeah, we talked about that.
And yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And Eric is talking about Baxter saying something about 15 big blind snap shove says to do differently. Can any non-human not named Haxton play profitably and well by limping good hands in late position blinds?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, like anything, it takes a little bit of work to learn and implement something. There's a lot of ways to do that. I've started to see some people limp in tournaments. You know, like I'm not even playing that many. I've just noticed a few people are doing it in some spots. A lot of like 20 big blind cut off, hijack, 25 bigs, 15 bigs. People are starting, to learn. Solvers are starting to say certain things, and people are trying it out. So yeah, I mean, people not named Haxton can do that. You gotta work on your game, and put in the time.
There you go. That's the answer. That makes sense. Discuss the hamburger. What's that? Is that the thing Ali was giving you a hard time about for eating or something?
I don't know about this hamburger.
This is the thing I've heard a lot of talk about. I honestly don't even know what it is. You ate or something on
I ate this double cheeseburger from Burger Lounge.
Okay.
On stream, and I guess they were talking about it, Ali and Nick.
I saw a little bit of it, but I didn't
watch it.
Yeah, I don't know like how it came into it.
Saw some people tweet. I don't know. Listen, I think I played well that day. I was very happy with, I had someone sending me hands. Basically, I made a couple folds. I was right. I had some bluffs. They worked. Like, I didn't really have many hands the whole day. I ended the day with basically just over starting stack. Day 2, thought I played well on stream. Thought I played well means like, I'm pretty demanding and rigorous. I'm basically saying it because I felt pretty good with my decisions, and based on the cards that people had, like my bluffs got through and I folded the second best hand. So I don't know. Did the hamburger make me play worse? I don't think so. And I don't listen. I'm never gonna regret my food choice because other people are criticizing me. I could really care less what 99.999% of people have to say about me. I could care less, man. I'm gonna do my own thing in life, and
you don't get the nickname King Czar Rast for nothing. That's just what it is. You can't be too worried about what's happening out there.
I'd only regret the food choice if I thought the hamburger made me play worse. So if you can come to me, Eric Beck, and show like, hey, after this hamburger,
things decline.
You played some you played worse than earlier. Please let me know, and I will not eat a hamburger at the poker table again.
There it is.
Not that it's a big food choice for me.
Right? I don't think that's well, if you guys can produce it, he'll listen. So most you've won or lost in the session.
I'm not gonna. I don't like answering those questions. I hate answering the like personal, financial-ish type questions or giving my opinion on other people in the poker world. There's nothing good that happens when you answer those questions. So
I think that's fair. Let's see if we have any more. And I think any other things you want to mention. I think we're pretty much you prefer while playing poker. That's sort of
usually not hamburgers. To be honest, I don't.
Yeah, I guess that's not on my list.
The thing is, there aren't that many options when you're in that poker studio at the Aria. It's like the Mexican place, and I'd already ordered from them a number of times, the Burger Lounge or Thai. That was it. Or the pizza place. So Yeah. I don't know. I generally like eating mostly healthy, not stuff that's too heavy, like stuff like meat, veggies, not too heavy on the bread. And I usually don't like eating too much. That's one of the biggest things. Just don't eat like too much, because I think you want to avoid having too much food go to your stomach, because that can slow you down a little bit mentally.
I want to ask you about short deck. Is that something do you guys play that at all in there? Or not really. In the Bobby's room.
I don't play much short deck. I get it. There's huge whales in Asia playing short deck for a lot of money, and some people want to learn. I know people that have won a lot of money playing short deck, like Jungle, True Teller, Coon's done well. There's been some people who have won some money playing short deck. I get why they would learn and want to play. Personally, I think short deck, it's like a simpler version of No Limit Hold'em, hands down. It's played with a different structure, with like everyone anteing thing. You could play No Limit Hold'em that way, but I don't think short deck is a great game. It doesn't really work as part of a mix because you have to use a different deck. So it's like you got to change decks, so it's kind of annoying. And from my eyes, like if you're gonna play short deck, like why not just play No Limit Hold'em? At least in terms of game complexity or whatever. But so I'm not really looking forward to short deck coming around. The way I view it is, I'm already stretched very thin in poker. I mean, like I'm basically trying to play every game that there is. A really high level, so I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna just hope short deck doesn't become like the new thing, and I'm kind of like holding off really learning, and I'm just hoping it dies. But I don't know. If it doesn't die sooner or later, I'll probably start trying to learn it.
Get in the streets. All right. What do you think about the current state of poker overall? Poker is like where it was is now. There's some legalized. Well, it's different, but federal sports got legalized. It seems to be a good step. That sort of goes hand in hand. Pennsylvania just passed. I don't know if you saw what happened with Michigan. It was House and Senate both passed it overwhelmingly. It was like a done deal, basically. The governor vetoed it.
Like legal in the state.
Yeah, like Michigan, like would be like Poker Stars in Michigan. Poker Stars just as in Pennsylvania.
Are they still separate islands?
They're connected. They're connected. New Jersey, Vegas, Nevada are connected. Pennsylvania will be connected. So it's moving, but I just didn't like. Do you feel like, is there another boom? Do you think I kind of whatever? Like,
well, what do you think? Why don't you say, and then
so
I'll go from there.
I do think there is another boom. I think that it will take a few more states. I think like Michigan, Illinois, New York, all of a sudden you have a viable network once you have interstate 5, 6, 7 states. I think the sports thing is pretty big. I think that's a big deal. Like I just think it's archaic in my opinion that they have these things like in London and England, all over the world. Really, there's so you can play poker. Like it's like weeds.
Yeah.
These things are like people want to gamble. Guess what? You're gonna find an app. You're gonna put money on one of the U.S. sites. You're gonna play in like a play money game and settle amongst people. People do that. So like regulated. It's good for tax stuff. It's a game of skill. It's not even close. There's fantasy that's for real money. So I think it's silly, and I think it will come back. I don't know if it's 5 years or 8 years or if it's 3 years, but I think it's making strides. I think it's got a good chance, and I just think it's kind of silly. It's silly.
Yeah, I mean, at least in terms of the silliness judgment, I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm mostly a libertarian. I don't think that the government should be outlawing people from doing things that aren't harmful to other people. I mean, whether it's drugs or gambling or, even like suicide. I'm not saying people should kill themselves, but like making that like a criminal activity and like putting someone in jail is like, to me, silly.
What do you mean
I just think in general, like, you should be putting in jail for doing stuff that hurts other people. Like, that's like, no, you can't hurt other people, but you should be able to do whatever you want yourself, is like my opinion when it comes to legally. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be things to help people. If someone has a gambling problem or a drug problem, maybe instead of sending them into jail and making them a criminal, maybe, you send them to like something or whatever that helps them or helps them deal with their issue rather than criminalizing them. So that would be my approach. So yeah, I do think it's very silly. In terms of like the future of poker, poker's an amazing game. Clearly, both you and I like it. I mean, I enjoy playing beyond the fact that it's kind of been my livelihood now and the thing I've, done for money my whole life. I mean, I like poker. Poker is starting to, it's slowly starting to, in certain aspects, become more solved. Obviously, poker's such a big, interesting space that it can never be solved in a meaningful way. I do think that, I do wonder and question what the long-term future of online poker is. There's obviously a very big challenge that websites have to preserve the integrity of play, right? Like in terms of people using assistants, and how realistic it is, even if the sites want to stop people from using assistants, how realistically they can prevent people from using certain kinds of assistants, I mean, imagine like if solvers are saying the way you should play in certain spots, like once computing power gets more powerful and whatever, you could essentially have someone having a program or a bot like just run a solver, and you could just be like playing like a solver that's running like on a really powerful computer, right? I mean, that ultimately becomes something like, and why, then people just have bots running. Like, I know bots are already an issue, and it's only going to get worse as time goes on. So, I mean, that's like a big issue, I think, for online poker. Now, live poker, I think, still has a very long time, like, because you're sitting down on your own. I think it's quite, I mean, this is on the horizon, like, cyborg brain interface type things where you can get like that kind of real-time information or whatever from a computer or the internet. That will be an issue, but I think that's still many years down the road. So, it looks like live poker, at least in terms of the robustness of like me as a human being being able to play in a competitive environment against another human being and not being assisted. Because I think ultimately that's like what most people want out of poker. Like most people want that. It's like me and I'm playing against some other humans and we're all like thinking like, how am I going to play? How am I going to beat these guys? But at the same time, that gambling or luck element. So unlike chess or some other games where, they're amazing games, but it's pure skill. There's no luck. If someone's better than you, they're just going to beat you like every time. That's not true in poker, and that's why it's a great game to play, and that's why the ecosystem is as healthy as it is. Why professionals like you and me and others can exist. It's because of that like luck element and whatever. So, some of these things for the interest and the health of the long-term, future of poker need to be preserved.
Right.
It needs to be a human versus human forum to challenge, right? Where you're not having computer assistance, even if you're training on the side. Training on the side is different than assistance while playing, right? Someone's going to train on their own. They're going to train on their own. But when you're playing, you're on your own gray matter only without computer assistance, So that's preserving, that's going to be important. If websites can do that, whether it's Virtue Poker, Poker Stars, Party Poker, whoever, God bless them, that'll be great. I do wonder how easily going forward that will be able to happen. Very determined people will obviously, like, whether it's another computer with another thing and it randomly clicks in different places or who knows, but I do hope that online poker is able to continue going forward. But it strikes me this, like, imagine that people played chess or backgammon online for big money. Like people don't really do that, but clearly if they just did it against random people, like people would be trying to just put bots, like, I'm going to play against Stockfish. Like, I'm just going to put Stockfish to play these guys in chess. And like every time I beat them, they give me $500. Like, you just set up that bot and there's going to be people in the world doing that for sure. Cause like, just make a living setting up some program to like play these guys,
Right.
No one can beat it. So I don't know. I mean, that's going to be an issue going forward for online poker. It's already, from my understanding, I don't play that much online. I basically don't play online anymore. It's already a little bit of an issue, but 5 years from now, it's going to be a really big issue. Computing power only gets faster every year. These programs are only getting better. And imagine when there's some kind of junction of the two, and it's just like very easy.
Right.
So like,
I mean, I think that's one of those things though, like 7-card stud, 5-card stud, then it was this, then it's that, now it's PLO. I guess the computer can figure out games, right? Like it might not necessarily
But
matter, but in theory it would be a different game. But there is different variations, there's different rules, there's combinations, like I think the one thing about poker that is.
But that's why mix.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm very happy about mix now. I view mix as like the Wild West right now in poker a little bit. Like, cause no limit hold'em, it's slowly, it's like marching forward. Like people are solving and getting better in this. And if you play online, it's like between assistants and everything. But you get these mix, you throw as many games in there as possible. It just gets really hard for a human being to like really like be an expert, like a true expert in like 15 games of poker, like all with different rules and different betting and like pot limit, no limit, whatever, you know. So
what would you
that's
say?
what
What game are you maybe known best for in those games? Out of those, maybe even the variation, not PLO or no limit, but like what's like can you rattle off those games off?
Yeah, I mean, I think in those games, I'm a very good no limit hold'em player, but I think in those games, because also a lot of the people playing the mix aren't like the best no limit hold'em players. There are some very good no limit hold'em players who play mix, but many of them aren't. And so I love playing no limit hold'em in the mix. But outside of that, which you were already pre-accepting, but I wanted to throw in there, something about Omaha 8 or better. I feel like I kind of get. It's kind of funny because Omaha 8 or better is a game that I think on the highest level, it's like everyone thinks they play well. You see a lot of a lot of people talk a lot of shit during Omaha 8 or better, kind of like some cross booking this, like, God, you're such a fish. Like people are just very derogatory towards other people's Omaha 8 or better games. But, I think it's one of my best games. I think recently, like in the last 2 years, I think I used to be a pretty poor up card game player. Stud 8, Raz, various forms of Raz. I think I've improved a lot in those games.
Right.
And I actually think I'm a good Raz player now. I like my Raz game as well. I love playing poker with Jungle because every time Raz comes up, he always is like Raz. But
He's
no,
funny, man. Jungle's so funny.
I like Jungle. He's good. But yeah, no, I like Raz too. Man, I'm getting old. I'm a Raz player now.
That's
when
fun
you
game.
know you're old.
That's a fun game, though. All right, I want to end it with this question, unless we get anything that jars at us here. This is basically I've asked almost every poker player that's so far been on the show, and I think it's interesting because I get asked a lot about poker being a zero-sum game. How do you answer that?
Before I answer that, let me go back real fast. I just want to say this. I'm not saying, I just want to make this very clear. I'm not saying that I'm a stud is one of my best games. My point that I wanted to say, just to be clear, is that I think it used to be like my worst game, and I was pretty bad. And I think one of the things that's happened in the last 2 years is a lot of the games they were my weakest games, I've gotten to be like decent,
right?
Like for those mixed games. So actually, I think one of my strengths now is I have very few weaknesses. I don't have many games where I'm just like really bad at. So I love playing really big mixes, just throwing as many games as possible because I feel like one of my strengths is that I don't have weaknesses. Whereas I think a lot of other guys who have some games that they are very, very, very good at have some other games that they're not as good at.
What's the rule what's the rule on that for sitting out? Like, you can't, like, is it kind of
you're not, it's like, frowned upon. There's not a hard rule, but you're definitely not supposed to like walk games because it's not really respecting the mix, right? Because like it's kind of not fair if like someone's like always leaves on certain games, and so then they're only
notice
playing.
Some of that, or a little bit, maybe like someone will time their bathroom break at least for that, right?
Yeah, there's some players who are a bit notorious for their walking. They're walking during games they don't like, and other people don't do it. Right. But yeah. So what was this other question about?
Yeah. So if someone says to you, "Hey Brian, it's great. You're a world-class poker player. You've won money, but it's a zero-sum game. What are you giving back to society?" That whole argument. I just think that's something that comes up a lot with like people looking on the outside, and maybe could you give your thoughts on how you would articulate that?
Sure. So first, I would say, I never say or would make the argument that like me as a poker player am doing some big service to society or really service at all. You know, I would also say that a lot of people are doing jobs that don't necessarily provide a service to society. But so you know, I don't think that poker is like unique in that aspect. You know, there are a number of jobs. In fact, unlike poker, there are actually a number of jobs that I would argue are probably detrimental to society. You know, I mean, I think you could make an argument that anybody involved in the oil industry is actually doing something detrimental, because like we should be transitioning to clean energy. We shouldn't be using 30 forms of energy anymore. It just is retarded. And, you know, I'm not going to get into an energy debate right now, but that's how I feel. And I believe it's pretty demonstrable if you were to think about it. But, but then what do I feel about that fact, given what I kind of just set up? So it is something that I do think about. I do think that as I go forward in life and I'm getting to a place where I'm, you know, getting financially set up and I feel more financially secure with things, you know, I'll feel more comfortable maybe starting to devote, I already have a little bit more time to some other endeavors. You know, I through my wife is a very conscious person. My wife finds people like who, you know, I'm supported and helped a number of people through my wife. You know, I'm even just trying to think. So, you know, just beyond like family and friends, but you know, there's even, my wife found this like young girl who like does some kinds of fighting, and we sponsor her, and we sponsor this other young man in Las Vegas who, you know, through athletics, the girl through some fighting and the boy through boxing, but you know, also helping them out in their life. And you know, my wife just finds like people and projects, and you know, I end up, so through my partnership with my wife, you know, and essentially like my work and money that I've earned, I, you know, end up helping other people, which is something that I value a lot about my partnership with my wife, and that makes me feel good about like what I'm doing and some of the money that I'm making, that it's being used, whether it's like family or friends or these other people we're supporting, that it goes to some of those causes. My wife and I we have this idea, we call it Citizen of the World. You know, I wrote a blog about this. I think it was a couple years ago. It's called it Citizen of Earth. This was an idea that had been forming in me for a number of years, and my wife, and we had discussed it, and have, you know, my wife is turning this into a concept and possibly even an NGO called Citizen of the World. And you know, if you want to read more about it, the idea and where it's coming from, I would encourage you to go read this on my blog, brianrast.com, blog Citizen of Earth. But you know, essentially the idea is that ultimately we're all human beings on planet Earth. You know, countries, while nations, while a useful way to organize earlier in history, I believe, are starting to outlive their usefulness and actually become negative influencers of of humanity in a number of ways. And you know, I think going forward in my life, especially if I am able to continue, you know, having success, you know, this is going to be one of the ways where my wife and I kind of direct some of our energy and money and certain things, you know, through this idea that my wife is doing. So yeah, for me, a lot of this is going to end up coming kind of like through my family and through my relationship with my wife. I do realize that my efforts in poker don't necessarily, or they don't make the world a better place. You know, they're kind of like my selfish pursuit of enjoyment from playing a game and money. But I do think that, you know, as I get older and I'm more comfortable with my life, and I feel good about being able to support my family and certain things that selfishly I've taken on in my life, you know, I'll be able to also have already done in some ways, but even more kind of give back to society, and I'll want to do it in the ways and things that are important to me.
Right.
You know, because there's a bunch of ways that you can quote unquote help the world, but certain things that are very important to me that I don't necessarily think have enough focus, and that'll be kind of the way I want to do it. I don't know. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think the big thing I say when people talk about that is, you know, I think it's really up to the individual. I can say for myself personally that doing now podcasts with Twitch, YouTube, you know, I'm providing some entertainment, some value for people. I have a lot of people that message me, you know, just say like, hey, I love what you do. It inspires me. Or, you know, I think it's more about like poker. Like I was just, Andrew Nemi made a good analogy to a golfer. He was just saying like, what is a golfer providing value? Like someone on the PGA Tour. Are they providing value like for the world necessarily? I mean, they're entertaining, they're doing something, they're following their dream, but it's also like, what are you doing with your free time? Yeah, you have money. Are you doing good things with it? You have free time. Are you nice to people? Are you creating? Are you just being a positive, net positive for the world? Like, yeah, poker's technically a zero-sum game, but like, yeah, so you know, trading. So there's a lot. There's a lot of other things. There's a lot of jobs or things like you said. There's stuff that's even like necessarily not detriment. So yeah, I think it's a little bit. I just think you hear that a lot in poker, and I don't think it's really a fair statement. But that's something that I get that a lot, where I'll hear people talk about that, or you kind of like poker has negative connotations.
Yes.
In general. So like kind of finding ways to diffuse that or just at least shed light on it, I think is good. But yeah, I mean, I don't believe in that. I don't think of that at all. If anything, I think again, it's like I've met so many interesting people through poker, friendships directly or indirectly through poker, and I'm involved in a lot of other projects besides poker. And I don't think poker defines me. You know, same with you. I know you do a lot of different things. You're involved in other industries, crypto, whatever, right? Like it's like, yeah, poker's a way for you to generate revenue, and you put time and effort at it, and it's a fun, skilled game, but it's not, you know, it doesn't define everything you do or that I do or that I want to do in my life. So yeah, I just think it's a cool question. If there's anything else, guys, let's do the retweet, and then we're gonna shut it down. Rast, do you have anything else that you want to touch on? We'll do this retweet giveaway for someone is gonna win a 20 spot. We'll let you click that button here. We're gonna go over here. We'll let you click the button. It's fun clicking buttons, you know. Oh, here's
Vadron just asked a question.
You got to answer the GOAT. You got to.
Brian, what area do you think Jeff should improve in his poker game?
Ooh, nice. This is actually hot seat feedback. Let's do it.
Okay, so I mean, you know, I've talked poker with Jeff for years, really, right? You know, I mean, we've had some stuff. So, you know, I mean, I definitely think I'm going to answer this question. There's certain things also, just given the intimate nature of my relationship with Jeff, that I don't want to answer too precisely. But with certain things, especially like as pertains to right now, just you know, out of interest for Jeff too, and kind of like privacy of his game as a professional. But you know, and I don't think I'm giving anything away with this. No, I think in the past, Jeff definitely played a little too scared and tight. And, you know, I think it's something Jeff was even aware of. He was even, like, aware of it while he was doing it and kept doing it. And so, you know, I definitely was trying to talk to him about how to, like, open up his game more and take advantage of more opportunities. And I think it's something even, you know, Jeff has spent some time on. And even, like, some of it isn't just a skills thing. Some of it is even, like, a mental thing, which is part of, you know, like he's talking with Elliot Rowe now. So I think part of like playing really good poker is also just like mentally getting yourself into place to like eliminate blockades that are kind of stopping you from playing your best game. Because there's a lot of reasons why emotionally or mentally you like might make certain decisions in the moment, you know, that you're not realizing that you're basically biased in doing certain things that might not be the best decision, but it's like, you know, what your brain is making you do. So that was definitely one thing. Jeff is very cognizant and working on that. You know, I think I think that like personally with Jeff, there's can have been a thing at times in the past with like focus, which I think is true for many people. Was one of my biggest issues. Also personally, I think, you know, there used to be times Jeff would play and he was very like, you know, on his phone, this, that, like not distracted and not in there in the flow playing his best game. You know, even like recently, and like I talked with Jeff about this too, and I think Jeff has changed it. Like he's instituted a new 4-table max policy. But I remember when we went to PCA, or no, we went to
Cabo, Mexico, maybe.
the Cabo together, and we were playing online tournaments. I'd be like, he'd have like, there'd be times he'd have like 12 tournaments. I'd be like, Jeff, you know, like, what are you doing? You know, and like there'd be like the $500 or some of these that are big, and he's just like $22 ones. I'm like, man, you can't like this. You can't be doing that. And I know some of it he was doing it for the stream, but stream makes it even worse because now he's like has to pay attention to 12 and like mentally talk and this and entertain. So you know, I think you know Jeff has worked on a lot of that stuff, and I think even like so a lot of that stuff Jeff knows about. You know, going forward, you know, working on his game. I mean, I think if Jeff wants to kind of put in the time, like at some point, starting to learn some other games would kind of like maybe be the next thing. I mean, I know right now, my guess would be Jeff still kind of wants to accomplish more just within the sphere of No Limit Hold'em. But you know, I think you know at some point it might make sense to start spending energy on other games. I don't know whether that's right now or in the near or distant future or whatever, but you know that would be the kind of like one of the next challenges.
Yeah, it could be fun. Who knows? Maybe Rast and I do a mixed game course or 101. That could be kind of fun to go over some of the games. That could be not like an advanced thing, but sort of like I know for me, it would be with like 7-card stud or Raz or these games that like I know there's ways you can learn the rules, but it'd be kind of cool to see like a base, or even just going over a few hands and talking through, like doing like replays of hands or something at some point. That would be cool. But to the question on No Limit Hold'em in current state, I will say just adjustments, being on time. You know, looking back on my last 2 World Series, I've had my first 2 not like winning, you know, strong World Series, and looking at it like I was coming fairly late a lot of times, like 3-4 hours, 2-3 hours for some of these, which you know, I just think it's just like you said, you do it sometimes you're playing cash games, it's your other thing, it's not your necessarily the most plus EV, but in my sense, if I'm there to play tournaments for the summer, you know, it's like, well, yeah, a 2K, a 3K WSOP event, a lot of values being there in the first hour or so, and coming at 4
if that's your
o'clock.
focus for the day, then you know, so, I mean, you're not doing something before.
Well, right. I mean, like I think part of that comes into being distracted with other projects, other things, also with YouTube and stuff, trying to find like maybe do too much or learn it as I go, or even like you know last summer doing the 5 weeks of fitness with Dave. Like you throw in YouTube, you throw in that, you throw in all these things. It's like all right, like you know juggling too much and really focusing on the priority, which is optimizing, playing my best, being there on time, being focused, present. So, you know, I think there's being honest about some of that. Why is it happening? You know, why are you not getting the same results when in theory I've put more time and I've studied, I've worked harder, but what's a, you know, there is variance too. I've definitely run, there's some spots in the summer I look back, I'm like, you know, that sucked. Kings to aces, king on the river, you know, these shit, like one tournament is a different story, but looking and being realistic on why the results haven't been quite where they should be, I think that's a decent part. Those things are, because those are things I can control completely. I can be on time, you know, even if it's like, oh, I'm on my phone or I'm doing something, you know, it's much better to be at the table at the start, and if I need to be on my phone a little, that's another thing.
Or if, I mean, you know, or you make, if you, let's say you're not going to be on time, you know, it's like a planned out thing. Like, let's say, you know, something happened the night before, you played all the way to the end and you busted like 3 hands before the end of the day, and you know, then you got something to eat, you go to bed, you know, it starts, the next tournament you want to play starts at 1 or let's say noon,
11
or 11. You're like, okay, well, you know, I want to sleep 8 hours, I want to get up, I want to get in a workout and then go, so you know, I'm going to show up at like 12:30 instead of 11, but so I can do these things. But you know, I think even if I miss the first level, like getting in the workout, getting the 8 hours of sleep, like I'll play better for the rest of the day, because that's still a long day of play. But like that's like a planned, like I'm going specifically an hour and a half late in order to get more sleep and get in a workout and like be ready to play that day. You know what I mean? Just not like having it be haphazard, and making and doing things with like the focus that, like, you know, my number one objective is to, you know, play well when I'm at the table and have good results, and then line up everything around that, rather than you know, the other way.
For sure.
Like line up poker around like other stuff that you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's good advice.
It's like keep the focus on like, what am I going to do to make like doing well, like have my results be good or play my best. Have that be like the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So tomorrow again, the 25K, Rast and I will both be in. There should be, we did a guess on how many players we think there will be in. Rast, did you punch your finals at 850?
I said 890.
890. I do have a 1% giveaway. Someone's gonna win based on who guesses the closest, and I've seen some wild guesses. I'd root for some of the latter. Some of these guesses.
890 feels high. Maybe I'm being a little optimistic. But let's
think,
go 890.
Yeah, 890.
Let's fucking
we
do
could
it.
set over under and bet. We could double or nothing on the 100 at a line. We could pick a line and like choose it, something fair. We could do it.
Oh, we could do auction. Let's auction it. Let's do that right here on stream.
Okay.
So we'll do the auction, and then someone buys, and then it's for $100.
Okay.
Okay. I've already given some information.
Yeah,
but that's okay.
It's okay. It's in good spirit.
It's okay. It's $100.
Okay.
All right. So we're not betting 10K. So okay. So I'll just say I'll start at 600.
I'll go 650.
All right. How about you got to go up by 5?
All right.
All right. 660.
I'll go 700.
All right. 720.
Yeah, I'll go 775. Let's push it up a little. I know where you're kind of at.
Oh, you know where I'm at.
Yeah, I know where you're kind of.
I don't know where you're at.
Yeah, you don't.
Where's Jeff at?
I know, that's true.
Where's Jeff at? Jeff. Do you know how many people played last year? Or there wasn't even a 25K last year, or was
they have this event. They get like 150ish. It like is like a good number.
150
without any.
But without all the like.
Now they've added
like
300.
this,
you
like
got
adding
Coonsies
300
in there. People are coming out of the woodwork. The wedding Shinman might even pop in.
775. That's 475 people that aren't getting put in. Huh. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna say 800.
I'll go 820. It's getting kind of dicey because
it is.
You might be changing your mind on the 890.
It is a little dicey up there. Okay.
You're getting
825.
825. So 890. I mean, your number's 890, but you might change in this scenario. I don't want to like push it to the max. I'll go 840. I mean, I really have a number in mind. I'm trying to stick to my guns. But I will. I'm not afraid to snap.
All right,
it off.
850.
Let's just put it right there, 885, and see what you do.
Okay, I'll take the under. I'll take under 80.
I like it. I'm fine with that. I think it could get 1,000.
All right, so. Oh yeah.
I think it's possible.
Yeah, no, that'll be
great
sick.
news. You'd be happy to chalk up 100 for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be happy. I mean, whatever. If I lose this bet, I'll be happy about the tournament. If I win this bet, I'll be less happy about the tournament. You know, I mean, I flew all the way out here. I want this to be some kind of amazing thing. I want to see some like crazy prize pools.
You want to see some?
Yeah. So you think 1,000, huh? It could be.
It could be
900.
Could be a bunch of different things.
Do you like your side of this bet? Because I honestly kind of have no idea.
I really don't either. It seems like a lot. Like the 300.
It does.
Like say there's 200 for sure that are like the 150 because there's rebuys. This is not a rebuy.
Wait. Oh no, this isn't a rebuy, right? Yeah.
So we're talking like.
I was gonna say
because out of that 150,
definitely losing.
some of those pros are rebuying. You know, it's a 150 with like re-entry. It's like I don't know, man. It might like it seems that's a lot of people. It would be actually insane. It sounds like a lot. They must know what they. I actually kind of like your side. If I had to bet a lot, I would bet your side, I guess,
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know, 300, that's still 8, what would we say, 885? I mean, that's 585 people that are posting 25K. I mean, that's a lot of money for people.
And the economy's kind of tanking. Crypto's down from its peak.
Listen, guys, crypto. All I got to say is crypto. It's not going to 20K in 2019. You can just post that. It's not happening. Honestly, I don't think it's going to 10K in 2019. I think it might even have a problem breaking that 6K in 2019. Right? 6K, like that was some serious support for like quite a while, you know. It might take a while to get up over 6K. It might happen towards the end of the year, it might not. I don't know. So I'm not saying this is anything, but I think 3K Bitcoin, that's I don't know. I mean, it's cheap. I think 3K Bitcoin might be good. We'll see.
Bob Barker, just the price is
Just
right.
you know, listen. You got some money in a squirrel away hole. You're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this 3K. I'm not giving any financial advice.
Right,
I don't know anything legally. I don't know. I don't even own Bitcoin.
You're saying it could
possibly.
I'm just saying.
Out.
Just that's something to consider.
Just saying, 3K Bitcoin. You know, you got to think about that.
You should take a gander. Again, Brian Rast, guys. This is his storied career. We hit him up give him a follow, Twitter, Instagram, all the good stuff. He posts his mind. He gets involved in debates. Thank you for the. Oh, we gotta do the give. This is it. This is how we end it. So we did copy this tweet. This is a $20 retweet giveaway. So that
guys,
questions.
Daniel Arajo. No, I gotta answer this. What about Ethereum? Listen, this is the point. Okay, it's not about what's gonna have the most tech or what's gonna do the most transactions or this. Okay, what matters to Bitcoin becoming a store of value, a medium of exchange, and a money is first its security. Okay, Bitcoin is more secure and more decentralized than Ethereum, and like all these other things that Ethereum does, that's great for Ethereum accomplishing that, but that doesn't really matter for Ethereum becoming a global money. It doesn't. It having a smart contract and this and being able to process all these dApps doesn't matter for that. Like, that's ultimately what you're betting on, or what I think the thesis is for Bitcoin becoming worth a lot. So, Bitcoin, man, that's my belief. That's my view on the space. There's a lot of people who have different views than me. I would encourage you to learn more before you put money in anything, you know. But these are my views, and if you like the way that I'm thinking about it, and you want something more in depth, that Murad Mahmudov podcast. With Anthony Paplano, Off the Chain. Think it's a really great, like, less than 2 hour podcast to learn more about some of the stuff that I was talking about. You know, he thinks a lot of the same way I do. Think he's a brilliant dude. All right, so no, keep going with your stuff now. Sorry,
okay.
cut Jeff off.
Guys, Rast is officially the longest podcast, which is nice. So we got 2 hour and 5 minute elapsed time, which is just over, I think right around 2 hours was our biggest. So again, Ryan and I could talk all day, but we are going to get a little studying in. We're going to relax. We're going to get on a routine tomorrow. We're going to hit, I got to call it the Elliott Roll in the morning. We're going to hit the gym. We're going to get a little maybe sauna, cold shower. You know, the whole thing. We're going to do the routine. We're going to be there on time. We're going to fire this big boy tomorrow. It's going to be a really exciting tournament. I invite you to follow along on the socials. Brian will probably have some updates. You guys know on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all the fun stuff. We fire and put it up there. So, see you tomorrow. And Brian, go ahead and click that button when you're ready where it says pick random tweet. Someone's going to win $20
right
at
here.
the click of your finger for participating in the retweet giveaway. And it is, Facundo. He asked a question, actually. Do you remember what it was? It was a book. His question was, which book do you
Wow, you remember what question he asked. I didn't remember that. But okay.
There, my man right there follows us. And 20 spot, how would you like it? You have a few options. We are out of the country right now. Stars is easy. But, yeah, coming your way, 20 spot. And I don't think no Twitch stream today. I'm not going to do it. It's 5 o'clock. We got some studying. We're probably going to go to Atlantis, check out the player party and register for the tournament. Most likely, we'll see how we're feeling. But, guys, that's it. We're going to sign off. For myself, Brian Rast, thank you guys so much. And, Brian, thanks for being here.
Thank you, buddy.
It was a pleasure.
This was a lot of fun.
Podcast in the books. Brian Rast, not the last. Likely going to be again, especially when we ship the sherbet to Herbert. We'll be her and Bert, and we're going to take all the cheese, and we'll be back maybe with the follow-up podcast.
Keep your eyes out for one of us this week. One of us is going deep all the way. Final table tag team. Let's do it.
Let's go. We're out. We'll see you soon, guys. We'll see you from the Bahamas. We'll see you very soon.